Welcome everyone to the deep dive. Today we're taking a closer look at a specific piece of NFL news, a transaction that honestly tells us a lot more than you might think at first glance. We're really going to peel back the layers on this one. The buzz right now is around the Jacksonville Jaguars. They've just signed veteran defensive tackle Austin Johnson. Now, okay, on the surface, maybe that sounds pretty standard, right? There's just another player joining a team. But, in the NFL, these moves, especially with experienced players, they often reveal some surprising things about team strategy, how they value players, and just the constant pressure cooker environment teams operate in. So that's our mission today, to really unpack this. Not just what happened, but the why. Why does signing a 31-year-old like Johnson matter for the Jags right now? What does it signal? Okay, let's get into it. So, the starting point, the news itself. The Jacksonville Jaguars have signed veteran DT Austin Johnson. NFL Network confirmed this just Monday, August 4th, 2025. So, it's done. Now, Johnson himself, let's see, he's 31. Originally a second-round pick for the Titans way back in 2016, so definitely not a rookie. He's been around the block a few times, seen different systems.
Yeah, and that word you use, veteran, that's key here. It's fascinating because Johnson isn't, some fringe guy hoping to stick. His resume speaks for itself. He's played in, 131 NFL games, started 56. That's a significant amount of time battling in the trenches. It tells you about his durability, his baseline skill level. Teams know what they're getting. He's a known quantity. And that reliability, it's gold in this league, especially with injuries and constant roster churn. It's why his phone keeps ringing.
Absolutely. But here's where it got really interesting for me when I was looking into his 2024 season with the Bills. He played 15 games, only one start, logged 19 tackles, solid rotational numbers. But then this just jumped out. He got the first two interceptions of his entire career. I mean, for a defensive tackle, that sounds almost impossible.
Yeah.
What's your take on that? Is that as unusual as it sounds?
Oh, it's incredibly unusual. You just don't see that. Think about it. Defensive tackles, they live in the muck, right? Their job is usually about stopping the run, pushing the pocket, maybe batting down a pass at the line if they're lucky. Sacks, tackles for loss, run stops, those are their metrics. Interceptions, that's usually linebacker or DB territory. So for Johnson to not just get his hands on the ball, but to actually secure two picks, it suggests real opportunism, awareness, maybe a little bit of luck, sure, but definitely a guy who's active, who's around the football, even when he's engaged with a 300-pound lineman. It speaks volumes about his field awareness, doesn't it?
It really does. Makes you picture those plays, right? Was it a screen pass he read? A tipped ball? Two interceptions? His buddies on the D-line must have had a field day with that, telling him he should switch positions. Now, looking at his whole career journey, he's built up a pretty solid body of work over 9 seasons. We're talking 260 tackles, 8.5 sacks, good numbers for an interior guy who does a lot of the dirty work that doesn't always show up on the stat sheet. And his path, it really shows that journeyman aspect. Started with Tennessee, 2016 to 2019, then the Giants for 2020, 2021, then off to the Chargers, 2022, 2023. And like we said, the Bills last year in 2024. Now Jacksonville, that's quite the tour.
And if you connect that pattern, that movement between teams, it actually tells you something important about the modern NFL. It's not necessarily a negative thing anymore, moving around like that. For a player like Johnson, it often highlights how valuable, reliable, experienced depth has become. Teams need guys who can step in, plug and play. Someone who understands different schemes, can fit into a locker room quickly, and just perform consistently without needing a ton of reps to get up to speed. That's especially true on the defensive line, where guys take such a beating. Johnson's proven he can do that, whether it's a one-year deal for cap reasons, a specific scheme fit, or just veteran leadership. He provides something teams are actively looking for. He's become that dependable, low-risk signing.
Right, which brings us squarely back to the Jaguars. So connecting all those dots, what does this move signal for Jacksonville right now? Why Austin Johnson specifically? Well, it seems to boil down to a very immediate, very practical need they have. The reports directly say his signing provides interior depth. That's the headline reason. But the reason they need that depth right now is critical. You have to look at who's currently sidelined. Eric Armstead, their big free agent signing at DT, he's working through a back injury. That's significant. And then there's Mason Smith, another defensive tackle who's currently on the active physically unable to perform list, the PUP list.
Right, and that PUP list designation is key. It means Smith can't practice or play until he's medically cleared. So you've immediately got a hole there. This whole situation really highlights how teams have to manage their roster strategically, especially at high-impact, high-injury spots like the D-line. Signing a guy like Johnson isn't just, oh, let's grab another player. No, it's a calculated, proactive move. It's about ensuring you have continuity, that you're still competitive, even when key guys like Armstead or promising players like Smith go down. The defensive line rotation is absolutely crucial. You need bodies.
Wow.
You need guys who can eat snaps and maintain a certain level of play. So bringing in Johnson is about mitigating that risk. It's shoring up the trenches before it potentially becomes a bigger problem during the season. It's smart planning.
It really makes you appreciate the chess match involved, doesn't it? It's not just about the stars on Sunday. It's about having answers for inevitable problems.
Absolutely. And think about the alternative. If you don't have that depth, one injury forces other guys to play way more snaps than they should. That leads to fatigue, maybe more injuries down the line, breakdowns in performance later in games or later in the season. Johnson brings that consistency. He's played in big games. He knows the grind. He can step in and, theoretically, the defense shouldn't miss too much of a beat in terms of scheme execution. It minimizes disruption, which is huge.
So when you really unpack it, you see this isn't just some minor news item about a player signing. It's a window into how NFL teams have to constantly think ahead, how they manage injuries, how they value experience. We've seen how a veteran like Austin Johnson, who's been consistent, reliable, maybe even flashed some unexpected playmaking with those picks, how he fits perfectly into solving an immediate problem for the Jaguars. He's not just roster filler, he's experience, he's depth, he's a potential solution right when they need one. It just shows how even these seemingly smaller moves can tell a much bigger story about running an NFL team.
And maybe the final thing to think about here is something beyond just filling that roster spot. What about the intangibles? You have a guy like Johnson. He's seen multiple organizations, different coaching styles. He's clearly adaptable, especially. Look at those interceptions again. How does that kind of experience translate in the locker room, especially when you're dealing with injuries at his position group? Does he bring a calming presence, leadership? There's a value there that doesn't show up in tackles or sacks. When things get tough, having veterans who've navigated adversity before, who know how to prepare week in and week out professionally, that can be invaluable. What unquantifiable impact does that kind of resilience and experience bring to a team trying to weather a storm? It's definitely something to keep an eye on as the Jaguars move forward this season.